The first thing I saw that morning was a police cruiser blocking my driveway. Then I saw the HOA president standing beside it, holding a folder with my name on it. "Step away from the house," she shouted. "You are no longer allowed to use this property." I looked at the officer, then back at her. "This is my house." She smiled. "No. It belongs to the HOA now." That was the moment I knew this wasn't about a late HOA fee, a lawn, or some stupid neighborhood rule. Something much bigger was happening. My name is Daniel Carter. And I'd lived in this quiet Texas neighborhood for almost 9 years. I had never missed an HOA payment. I had never fought with the board. I kept my property clean, paid my taxes, and mostly stayed out of everyone's business. But 3 months earlier, everything had changed when Victoria Hale became our new HOA president. Victoria wasn't the kind of woman who asked for permission. She gave orders. Within weeks, she had started talking about modernizing the neighborhood. New security cameras. New landscaping contracts. New drones for property inspections. At first, nobody cared. Then the HOA bills started getting higher. Our monthly fee jumped by almost 40%. When residents asked where the money was going, Victoria always had the same answer: security and community protection. But one evening, I noticed something strange in the HOA financial report. Almost $86,000 had been paid to a company called Skywatch Solutions. The company supposedly handled aerial inspections for the neighborhood. There was only one problem. I had searched the company records that night. Skywatch Solutions wasn't owned by some security company. It was owned by Victoria Hale. I stared at the screen for several seconds. Then I whispered, "She's using our money to build her own business." I wasn't the only one who noticed. The next board meeting became a disaster. Residents demanded answers. Victoria stood at the front of the room, perfectly calm. "You approved the budget," she said. An elderly homeowner stood up. "We approved security cameras. Not your private drone company." The room went silent. Victoria's smile disappeared. "You should be careful with accusations." Then she opened another folder. Inside were printed copies of letters from the HOA's lawyer. Except the lawyer had never sent them. That was the second thing that didn't make sense. Our longtime HOA attorney, Mark Benson, had represented the community for nearly 12 years. He had always warned the board not to mix personal business with HOA money. But suddenly, Victoria announced that Mark was no longer working with the association. Nobody had voted on it. Nobody had been told. And when someone asked who the new attorney was, Victoria simply said, "Someone I trust." The next morning, every homeowner received an email. The HOA now had a new legal firm. And the firm's owner was Victoria's own brother. That was when I realized the drone money was only the beginning. I started saving every email, every invoice, every board notice, and every payment record I could find. I thought I was collecting evidence against Victoria. I didn't know Victoria had already started building a case against me. 2 days later, I came home and found a red notice taped across my front door. Property access suspended by HOA order. Underneath it was Victoria's signature. I pulled the paper off and called her. She answered on the second ring. "Daniel," she said sweetly, "you really should stop digging into things that don't concern you." I looked at the notice in my hand. "Then why are you trying to take my house?" There was a pause. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Because you already signed the agreement." "I never signed anything." Victoria laughed quietly. "You will understand soon." The call ended. That night, I checked my email again. There was one new message. It contained a scanned document showing my signature on an HOA property agreement. The signature looked exactly like mine. But I had never seen the document before. And at the bottom was the name of the new HOA lawyer. Victoria's brother. That was when I understood the real danger. Victoria wasn't just stealing HOA money. She was using the HOA itself to create fake legal documents. And somehow, She had obtained a copy of my signature. Viral line: the moment they use your own signature against you, the fight stops being about money and starts being about who controls the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the fake agreement on my laptop, trying to understand how Victoria had gotten my signature. Then I noticed something I had missed before. The document had been created 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks before Victoria claimed I had signed it. That meant someone had planned this long before the police showed up at my house. I called Mark Benson, the former HOA lawyer. He answered immediately. "Daniel, I was hoping you'd call." I told him everything. There was silence on the other end. Then Mark said, "Victoria didn't fire me because of a disagreement. I found something in the HOA accounts." "What did you find?" "She wasn't just paying her drone company. She was moving money through 3 different companies." My hands went cold. Mark explained that the drone business was only one part of the plan. Money from the HOA had been sent to Victoria's company, then moved into another company owned by her brother. From there, payments were made for property surveys, legal documents, and private security. "And your property?" I asked. Mark took a breath. "Your house sits next to the only undeveloped section of the neighborhood. Someone wants that land." Everything suddenly made sense. Victoria wasn't trying to control my house because of an HOA violation. She wanted the land. The next morning, I met Mark at his office. He handed me a thick file. Inside were bank records, emails, contracts, and something even more important: a recording. It was from an old HOA board meeting. Victoria could be heard saying, "Once Daniel is pushed out, the property can be transferred without resistance." I looked at Mark. "She said my name?" "Yes." "And who was she talking to?" Mark pointed to the recording timestamp. It was Victoria speaking with her brother. But there was another voice in the room. A voice I recognized. The police officer who had shown up at my house. He wasn't a real police officer. He was a private security contractor Victoria had hired. That explained everything. The next board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Victoria expected me to stay away. Instead, I walked through the doors with Mark beside me. Victoria froze. "You were told not to enter this meeting." I placed the fake property agreement on the table. "You were right about one thing." She smiled. "What?" "This meeting isn't about my house." I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. "Once Daniel is pushed out, the property can be transferred without resistance." Nobody moved. Then another recording played. Victoria discussing the HOA money. Then another. Her brother talking about replacing the original lawyer. One by one, the truth came out. Residents began shouting. Someone called the police. Victoria tried to leave. But 2 actual officers entered the room. The same officer who had stood outside my house was brought in separately. He immediately tried to claim he had only been following orders. Then the officers showed him the recordings. He stopped talking. Victoria looked at me. "You planned this?" I shook my head. "No. You did." The investigation lasted several weeks. Bank records confirmed the missing money. The fake legal documents were traced back to Victoria's brother's office. The security company admitted Victoria had paid them to act like law enforcement. And the signature on my fake agreement? A forensic examiner proved it had been copied from an old document. Victoria was charged. Her brother was charged too. The HOA board was removed. And an independent manager took control of the association while the finances were rebuilt. Months later, I received one final letter. It wasn't from Victoria. It was from the court. The fake agreement against my property had been officially cancelled. I stood on my porch that evening and watched the sun disappear behind the trees. For months, Victoria had acted like money gave her power. It didn't. The truth did. And the strangest part was that the HOA's drone business, the fake lawyer, and the fake police officer had all been connected to one simple goal: my land. She thought she was buying control of the neighborhood. Instead, she built the evidence that destroyed her own power. I still live in the same house. I still pay my HOA fees. But now every dollar is publicly tracked. Every major contract requires a vote. And no board member can use HOA money for a private company. Sometimes people ask me why I didn't fight Victoria sooner. I tell them the same thing every time. I wasn't afraid of her power. I was waiting for her to show me where she had hidden it. And she did. Every invoice. Every fake document. Every lie. She left the evidence behind herself. When someone thinks they own everyone around them, they usually forget one thing. Every lie leaves a trail,